Hello, and welcome to the 27th episode of Last Attempt, a World of Warcraft Guildcast. I'm your host, Squirrelthug, and joining me again today on our panel is co-host Templrivanho.
Hello.
A quick heads up before we dive in. By the time this episode drops Tuesday morning, patch 12.1 and the Curse of Lulitech update will already be live in Azeroth. So if you're listening to this early Tuesday morning, then that's going live today. So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about will go live then. Also, well, we won't mention it later on in the episode. This is now, as we are in the last week for Time Walking event. So if you didn't get a chance to get that done by the time you're listening to this episode, it is going to be finished and done. So if you didn't, good luck for the next time. But if you did, congratulations, because the mount is pretty awesome. Today, we've got a genuinely rough week for round stability to unpack. A resurfaced Chris Metzen quote that's got the community buzzing about where the Worldsoul Saga goes next. China's massive 21st anniversary celebration, a deep dive into the new Venomous Abyss raid, and Mythic Plus changes coming with Season 2. The last call on Decor Duel rewards before the doors close. And we'll close out the news by digging into Xbox's rough quarter Q4 earnings, what it might mean for Blizzard's corner of the Microsoft empire. Let's go around the table and update everyone what we've been up to this week. Templar, what have you been getting yourself into in the last week of the patch?
We were able to, of course, do the dragons last week. So this week, because there was a bit of confusion on when the patch was coming. A lot of people, I think, thought it was coming in 2 weeks instead of next week or
Because
Tuesday
of
by the
season
time.
start?
Yeah. By the time this podcast comes out, of course, like you said, 12.1 will have released. So what had happened is, unfortunately, Scourge planned his week thinking that, like I said, we had 2 weeks instead of 1 week. So instead of continuing on the main raid, what we did was just finish up with Rotmire, and then we were trying to do the Zerg strat to just one phase Chimeras. Unfortunately, we got him to like 0.2% multiple times, but weren't able to do it,
Oh no.
um, which sucks. But it was just, sort of for fun because, again, there was a lot of people out and everything. But we had a good time, I think. And from there, I am just trying to take it easy on just finishing some gear on some alts. Nothing too major, just like doing uh, a few delves and stuff while I have time. Outside of raid, it's been another crazy week IRL. So trying to, just take things easy, but get everything ready for the next patch and for the start of season 2.
Do you have any more level grinding to do in the last 3 days of time walking?
Um, Not really. I now have 4 alts who are max level and everything now, and relatively geared. The only one really is my mage. He's like 240, somewhere around there. And I did take advantage of the time walking to do the fast level ups and everything. So yeah, just trying to, you know, take it easy, and knowing that when the season comes, I have 4 geared alts, and I do think that for this season, I'll probably have my warrior as a secondary tank. Maybe not necessarily for raid, but just for fun and to help other people level and do Mythic Plus and stuff like that. But we'll see whenever season 2 comes.
Yeah, how much time you actually spend, playing, will always determine how much you play those alts. But it sounds fun. I played a warrior. I'm leveling another one right now. And I mean, it's like level 12, so I'm not doing much. But they are fun. Um, and let's. I wanted to go into that a little bit. While we're on the topic, before we get into everything, what have you sort of done to prepare yourself for season 2?
Um, the biggest thing, like I said, is just having some, maybe not max gear level, but excuse me, a decent amount of gear. For example, the warrior is about 276. I think my shaman is 258, somewhere around there. Um, and again, my mage is like 240, and he needs like some heroic pieces. But in general, it's just been leveling them and gearing them. And as far as other things, for example, I've still kept up with professions, which I know seems a bit redundant, but one of the things in keeping up with them and one of the benefits is earning the artisan's moxie. And the reason that's important is because not only can you purchase recipes with that, but going into a new patch, it's good to have, because you can buy the satchels that contain the various reagents. For example, in blacksmithing's case, it'll have ore. Same thing with jewel crafting. For alchemy, it'll have a bunch of herbs and stuff like that. And so just having that sort of as a, almost like a backup, or otherwise doing the profession uh, patron orders, which they can also contain the satchels themselves. They don't contain as much, but it's the artisan's commission. And I've just been saving those reagents, especially the max level ones, just to heading into the season 2 and preparing for whenever I need to craft something, or I need to have sort of an extra stock in case the price of mats go up. And also still making cauldrons, because I did double check, and the cauldrons will stay the same, although we do get a couple more potions. And I do believe that, assuming my warrior can learn the new potions, that they will be in the new cauldrons. So still doing that, using the concentration up. So it's a bunch of gearing, but mostly just um, keeping up with things heading into the future.
Okay. Yeah, that's all great advice. Hopefully that'll help some people get prepared for this upcoming season. Um, I, like you, I also have 4 max level characters now. I took the time to use time looking to get a couple of them leveled up, but I just chose 2 more druids. So I have a resto druid and the outlaw rogue that I already had from near the beginning of the season, and I just leveled the balance druid and the guardian druid. And the balance druid, honestly, like in dungeons and lower end, like when I'm pushing my own key, I will do balance and I'll go in DPS and I'll try and get my rotation down and kind of figure that out. And I'm getting better at it. It's new to me, but it's not too complex. I thought it was going to be just like a lot, because I know Feral last season was like overcomplicated. So I'm glad to see that that one's been pretty easy to catch on to. I also leveled the bear, and oh, because I was doing the balance thing, my easiest time to gear up was to set my specialization to balance and then get into raids uh, as a healer. So I'm a much better healer than I am a balance player.
Right.
And I was doing really well, so I was keeping up, and my numbers were never an issue when I was healing. But I got a bunch of void cores, and I've just been spending them in heroics. Even though, like, the idea is that you want to spend them at the top level where you're going to be. I don't imagine that I'm going to level. I mean, this is the last week. I didn't really want to bother with healing mythic raids again. I've already healed them on AON. And so just spending all my void cores and heroics was good enough, right? So like that was fine. Um, spending I and then because this last Saturday, I had just finished leveling up my Guardian Druid. So in this last week is the only time I've been gearing it up and such. And I initially got some stuff off the auction house, very easy, got into LFR and just kept using the void cores. I just burned through a bunch of void cores. So the gearing process was actually very fast and I was able to gear up. Then I was in a position to do normals and there's not a lot of people running those raids, so I had to run one myself, and I dragged a whole bunch of people all the way through a void spire, and we got crowned
Nice.
down. So that was fun. And I'd never tanked those before, but thankfully Wowhead has a nice little cheat sheet for all their raids. So if anybody's ever like confused on something, best thing to do is to study them, watch the PTR videos that people put out. There should be some on the Ulutech raid already. There should be things specific to your role, DPS, tank, or heals, what your responsibilities are, those kinds of things. But if you kind of already know the fight and you're in a pinch for something specific, go to Wowhead or look up on Google their raid cheat sheets, and they're great. They'll show you all the mechanics in a really small card, and they have a section for like tank responsibilities. So that made it really easy. I just kind of followed the cards on like what I didn't know already from raiding in Mythic, right? Because a lot of stuff that I'm not responsible for as a healer, it's mostly just healing and then like navigating the field mechanics. But a lot of the times, I'm not the target of certain mechanics or certain things to manage throughout the raid. That changes here and there and such, right? But like for the most part, there was a bunch of things that I had to learn, and I definitely never had tank responsibilities. So I had to learn those all on the fly. But we got it. We made it all the way through. Ilaria only took us like four or five pools, I think.
Oh wow. I'm
So
honestly surprised because even now people just you know, I don't know how else to say it, but just aren't very good or choose sort of not to learn it. Um, it's still very much a uh, hard fight for, I guess, for casuals.
yeah, and it was a normal raid, so we had a bunch of casuals in there. And the tank that I was with was a paladin tank, and he normally heals. So,
Oh, nice.
so it was both of our first time tanking Voidspire. Um, and so we had already, I think he had actually finished it AOTC. So he's already done it, but only healing. So I understand like his perspective on what he knows and what he doesn't know. It's kind of the same boat that I'm in. And so, we just like talked to each other the whole raid and kind of navigated how we were going to manage the mechanics for these things. And yeah, for the most part, it went pretty smooth. We had a couple wipes on dragons. We had a few wipes on paladins, but everything else was pretty smooth.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just been kind of rough whenever I was taking my warrior tank through. Um, we were just wiping all the time on dragon. I think it took us like 10 tries, and that was what, 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Was it the
Um,
fear?
it was the fear, yes, and
Ooh,
yeah, it's just instant wipe. And we did get to Illyria, but they just, the group just couldn't handle it, which sucked. But that's awesome to hear that you were able to do it, and you know, being able to communicate with the other tank and him communicating with you. It's it's hard to put into words because a lot of people who don't tank, you know, it's sort of like this. You have to have some sort of synergy between you and the other tank in order for sort of things to get done, especially if you want to get it done well. Uh, and
yeah.
it's just great to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some some rough edges there. I mean, for example, our wipes on dragons wasn't from fear. For the most we got feared once. That was pretty brutal, but our healers just kept us up all the way through it. And me as the
Nice.
second tank, I not only kept threat on the dragon, but I stayed alive the entire time. No, nobody dispelled me. They just let it run down on everyone. So like there weren't any dispels going out, and there were hardly any dispels going out on paladins. And these healers are just like they're just raw dogging it. Just it was did not care about anything, any mechanics. They were just full power. They were really good. We didn't have very many healers. I think I had like two or three for like a 20, and they were just doing a really good job. So we didn't have any issues on the healing, but like the mechanics. But the tank had hit the orb, the circle the void circle that it creates when it hits the edge of the room. He had hit that like two or three times in a row, and it just wiped out the rest of
Oh,
the arena. Like there was nowhere to stand. So,
right.
but after we like figured that little bit out on how we were gonna, with the void orbs, like nailed it first time. So yeah, but the communication, it really helped being able to like talk with a tank and have them understand like what changes need to be made and like how we're going to adjust things like on the fly. So it was pretty cool. Even though he was new, still had enough experience to like navigate it properly. And Illyria, like I said, it was only like a few wipes. And like two of them were in phase one, you know.
Hmm.
So like those there was like three of them where we like actually moved into the fight, and yeah, the third time we did that, like we nailed it. So yeah, it didn't take anyway the group too long to get it done. I think we got the whole thing done 2 hours or so.
Nice.
Okay, and on to our first news item. There is so Mr. GM's popular WoW community member, communicator, and he had posted something on X. It was a video of the 2023, I believe, BlizzCon, where Chris Metzen had announced the Worldsoul Saga, and this was a section where he was going over uh, the Last Titan and what we can expect with that. And there were things in here that I completely forgot about. For example, he was saying that in the Last Titan, the Titans will return to Azeroth, and we will see them return in the halls of Ulduar. And so, we had this little speculation on where we think like the main city and such is going to be in the Last Titan. I think now seeing that. And them mentioning it so early, and that probably being a very heavy focal point for the story as it goes. We'll be starting at Ulduar, which is a little bit different than when we started initially, right? Because we started in two locations in Howling Fjord and Borean Tundra, right? Vengeance Landing, and well, that was for the Horde. I know the Horde ones. And then we worked our way up north. And this time around, if Ulduar is our start, we kind of start right away at the northernmost part of Northrend in this large, Titan facility. So yeah, so there's definitely some things about that video that were very interesting that he had said, and it kind of sparked conversation with the community and where things are going. Did you see anything about that, Templar?
I did not, but I'm reading it right now. Unfortunately, I missed that. But it's funny that these things were already mentioned, and we just kind of like they were just right under our noses, and we completely forgot about them. Or otherwise, we were too hyped up on the rest of the changes to skip out on what Chris Metzen actually said. But it makes a lot of sense, especially because with as far as the Titans and the Titan zones, and we still have Magni, being the speaker for Azeroth,
He's all
and
fleshy
whenever,
now, right?
yep.
Right.
Um, but whenever we started the World Soul Saga with the War Within, we did start back with Magni, back in Silithus, and hearing the voice of Azeroth herself. And so this makes a lot of sense in terms of looking back at his quotes, looking at what we thought it was going to be, either Ulduar or some other Titan area, and the whole Titans coming back, and it's all interlinked and we know that Silithus and the area where I believe it's Mother, that's one of the Titan. I forget what she's considered.
She's a type of
A
construct, right?
Yeah,
She was inside of, well, what expansion was that? She was inside of a dungeon where we found her.
yes, she was in Battle for Azeroth, and looking it up, she is one of the Watchers,
Ah,
and
yes.
what
Like Loken,
happens?
right? And Freya?
I believe so. Yeah. And so whenever we were in BFA, after we did Uldir, bleh, it's hard right to say Uldir, which is not Ulduar. We defeated Mother, but then she becomes sort of a not actually a threat. We sort of uh, take her down, and then she helps us and continues to help us since BFA with Magni in that area in Silithus. And so, with the Titans coming back, I'd imagine that we're probably going to either end this expansion or just like the next expansion will begin probably in Silithus again, or somehow we'll get a chance to see Mother again and Magni and go from Silithus and probably teleport or otherwise go to Ulduar from there.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I mean, we've got a lot of these places all over Azeroth, and Ulduar is somewhere we're going, but Uldir is still relevant, and um, we also have we have several of these all, like just all over. If you don't play Druid, there's a spell that will take you to the Dreamway, and the Dreamway was this really cool um, sort of zone. It's a really small zone in the dream, and it will lead you to a bunch of different locations across Azeroth. One of them being it's the druid's home for the night elves. It's near Hyjal. I think it's just south of Hyjal. But anyways, that was like the Moonguard. No, Moonguard's is the server. It might actually be. It's something like that. It's Moon something. I forget what it is. I haven't been there in a really really long time because once you learn the spell from you do your Legion quest line for your legendary and it unlocks that spell. And so you can go there. And then it has these portals that take you to a bunch of different places that are like really important to druids all over Azeroth. And it's really cool. It's like a nice way to get around. If we can have something like that through like a Titan technology, right? Like, because all of these things are connected and we're able to get around to all these different continents. I think it'd be cool if we had like a Titan um, sort of tech, like I don't know, some portal way where we see different places. Because I'd like to visit more Titan facilities, and Ulduar is really cool, and I hope we see a lot more of it. But I like this part of the game that they're going into because so far the Titan stuff has been really we don't really go there too often unless it's like a small dungeon or one raid one time.
Yeah, and finally having a culmination to these things um, is certainly going to be interesting. I did see with regards to uh, the quote being that what is it that uh, that it's a vast conspiracy that challenges everything players think they know about the Titans and Azeroth herself. Um, that that makes all the more sense, just going through uh, all of the machinations that Xalatath has had before us. And I would even argue what we've seen with the ethereals and how she's used them, to gain more power and everything. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting what we're finally getting. And if we do get some sort of teleportation nexus to all of the different Titan areas, it will be a nice reprieve for the poor mages who are constantly casting portal spells in the capital cities 24/7, 365 days a year.
Yeah. Um, so like, do you hear about the leaks that had gotten sort of exposed for like data mining and such that happened recently?
I don't think I did. If it was it the leaks that were supposed to be for BlizzCon or the next expansion?
No, they were like sort of screenplays, I guess, right? Like there was like text that they had found somewhere data mined through something, and it was, I don't know, maybe usually these files get washed or cleared from the build before they get pushed to being unencrypted or something or going out for a PTR patch. But you know, anything that's different, these data miners they will sniff it out. And so they found some text, some plain text somewhere, and one of them was a conversation that had Liadrin and Zoljara walking into um, Silvermoon, and then it's sort of like it's camera direction, right? Like it's not actually like a script on like what people are gonna say, and there's a couple things of like what people are saying, but it's mostly just like camera direction and like what you're supposed to get, like art direction, like what basically you know the emotions you're supposed to get out of the characters. And there's a conversation that happens that goes down with Lorthamar, and that a lot of people got upset about that because it got released and they were sort of conflating what was is being said with camera direction and then like if that kind of wording was going to be used in the scripting and like the actual dialogue of the characters, which of course it isn't. And so there's just a huge reaction online as do you know people just always do. They want to overreact to certain things or latch onto something. So there was some controversy with that. I don't know what the other part was, but there was another scene that was also like pulled out, and the guy who had voiced Kill Jaden had just posted on X that he's coming back and he's going to do something, and no details yet, but you know he's in the studio pretty soon, and so we don't know if this is. I mean, he could be doing something for Hearthstone, right? Like we don't know what it is, but the voice of Kill Jaden, you know, the guy's going back into the studio.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't hear about that, but I know stuff like that has come out before. And usually what happens in um when it's happened in the past, it was like you would see or like a sort of like a bounding box. In other words, it would just be on your screen a big red rectangle with some X's, and usually when that happened, that's where like a cinematic would take place, and then it would have some sort of text like Temp- Templrivanho went, uh, he got teleported, and I don't know, the camera direction is over here.
Oh, I've
Um,
seen that on the PTR. Yeah, yeah, where they just
yeah,
cut through what would normally be a cinematic, and you got to see it later.
right. So my guess is that's what they actually saw. And like you said, it was just camera direction and sort of more of a storyboard type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, And as far as Kil'jaeden's voice actor, you know, we do have the Lightforged Draenei coming back, you know, with Nagatel and the other place that I forget. but and we've been talking
Val?
about our yeah, that's it, Val. And we've been talking about how the Draenei, you know, where a lot of people, including us, want to see them expanded and maybe you know they'll come back into the picture again. And with Kil'jaeden being there, that makes a lot of sense, you know. But like you said, we don't know, especially because Hearthstone arguably is just in such constant state of flux. It could be anything. You know, they have had a lot of promotions, a lot of different expansions, which are more like seasons, and they just keep coming and coming and coming. So it is interesting, though. And I'm curious if he voiced anyone else. My guess is he probably voiced maybe a few different characters, but he probably is, going back to kill Jade in one form or another.
Yeah, I only saw the one tweet or somebody retweeting his video or something. Maybe they pulled it from another platform. I don't want to like. I know a lot of people have like various feelings about the X platform, so like I don't actually know if he posted that video on there. I just know that I saw it on there, um, and and so um, yeah, he did announce it, but it was like unofficial, so we don't like you said, like we don't really know where it's going to go. But hopefully we even if it's like going back in time and seeing a story that is going to be retold. Like we do time stuff all the time, or like it doesn't even have to be chromey stuff. It could just be like, oh, look into this crystal and view this past like incident with me, and then you're playing that in an instanced location where you're playing through the memory, right? Like we do
Right.
things often, especially now. Most of the time it's very explicitly time travel with Chromie and doing other things like that, but I think this is well within the ability of like what we can do. And so like if there was a flashback or something, or even if he did get revived somehow, right? Because yeah, we don't really have any solid answers on the status of any of that, or like Kill Jaden was very powerful. So is this going to be the one he dies this once and like that's it? We got several other characters that can make it back. I feel like he was much too powerful to just be taken out just like that.
Yeah, and one of the things that we know, but I don't think we really uh, know the extent of, is that there's still a lot of different powers in terms of the WoW cosmology, um, whether it's void or light. There's still just a lot of different people or things that are more powerful than us that we don't know about, that may come from this part of the cosmology or that. And as you said, with Kil'jaeden being so powerful, you know maybe he you know comes back and something else causes him to come back. In other words, maybe Xal'atath is bringing him in, or maybe something beyond Xal'atath's planning is bringing him in, or something like that. Because again, we do know at the very least that as far as Sylvanas is concerned, Xal'atath was surprised, and she even said herself that she wasn't planning on her interfering with us or with her plans, as it were. So, um, again, very interesting if true, and just continue to, you know, can't wait to see what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, like the story coming up, it's going to be I'm sure we're all gonna love it. I've always really enjoyed the way the direction the story's gone, and honestly, most of the people that I see complaining about things like this online don't play the game anymore. So, the people who do play, I think we're all enjoying the way the stories are playing out, and they're so accessible now, especially with story mode and being able to jump into raid and like just have a bunch of like followers like from a follower dungeon help you finish a raid, and you get to actually sort of experience that last boss fight, a muted version of it, and then see the end cinematic. It's still, especially when it comes to, um, there have been controversies about how Blizzard handles accessibility, and that Blizzard is like doing these things to explicitly exclude people with disabilities, which is obviously not true. And I think that something like story mode gets overlooked by people. You're right, because it is definitely very much an accessibility feature. It is nearly effortless to get through that mode, and even to the point I think you can even die and they'll finish the fight for you. So it just takes forever. So, it's it's a pretty good feature, and I think that things like that should stand as a reminder to people that like all of these stories and such and everything are just much more accessible to everyone now, and all the raids and the things that they have in this game, and that's always a really good thing. So we should always give them credit for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just surprised people would think that they're not being more accessible, but this is the internet, so I guess it doesn't surprise me too much.
Well, that conversation sparked because of the controversy between the miscommunication between, somebody in QA or somebody in customer service. Not like it would already been written on the BlizzCon website that there was going to be,
Oh,
you know,
right, right. The accessibility for
yeah,
the
at least on the main stage. That's what we have guaranteed.
mhm.
So yeah, that's when the conversation sparked about that. But I think for the most part, those things are just reactions to a misunderstanding. And Blizzard does usually do a really good job with you know catering to their players.
Yeah, and um yeah, definitely. It's like we said before, Blizzard really needs to get their QA people um on board with each other. I don't know. There's a lot of miscommunication that could be fixed just by doing that.
Yes, and speaking of catering to players, on to our next news item. China's 21st WoW anniversary, BlizzCon Shanghai, and exclusive rewards. So it's not BlizzCon official, it's X Party. And this is basically really close to BlizzCon, and it's being thrown by the studio over there. There's supposed to be like announcements and all this other stuff is going to go down here. This is starting October 16th, and so we'll probably actually get some news. But some of their news might actually just be like region exclusive. So they have so many things about their game that is so much different than our version of WoW. It wouldn't surprise me if all the announcements and such that happen there at this X party were about just their region specifically. So there won't be very much news for us to report on. One of the things that I did want to cover here was that once again we are getting these interesting exclusives to the Chinese region, and I I I can't help but feel bad about this. And when I looked at the Wowhead article for this, what I noticed is that in the comments, a lot of what people were asking for was this sort of feature that allows you to select news and filter it based off of regions. So if there's news that's specific to or tagged with EU, then somebody could like untick that and then never get anything that has the EU tag on it. Then there's of course the same. They want that to apply to the Chinese region. Basically, most of the comments are filled with people who are very upset about once again seeing news about something that's going to come to the Chinese servers that will not come to the American servers or the I mean, what are the other servers? Atlantic, right? We have like Atlantic,
Hmm.
America, and maybe like another group. No, no, no. It's EU and NA.
Correct.
So EU, NA, and then China. So those are the three different regions that we have, and China's just like off to the side. They're doing their own thing. So yeah, so people have feel very strongly about that. I agree. I don't think it's a cool thing to do to us, and genuinely, I'm so surprised that out of the three regions, the one that's being treated with the most like enthusiasm for exclusivity is not where Blizzard is located, right? I would have thought that America would get a lot of things that are exclusive to us.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the point of we can't avoid it anymore, and like a lot of the things they're coming out with are really cool. Um,
Yeah.
the
Did you see the
newest,
exclusives for this?
yeah, it's pretty
Dude, the very
crazy.
armor. And do you know where it's from?
Yeah, it said it was from a Hearthstone card, did it not?
Yes. Yeah. Well, so when you play Hearthstone, you can choose like a hero, and it's like a class. So you can play rogue, paladin, warrior, right? And so for the warrior and I believe hunter class, you could choose this Varian Rin card, and he would stand in for either of those two classes and be the hero card that you picked, who's kind of like helping you, like his abilities are up in front and he's the one that's taking the damage and stuff as you play the card game. It's almost like the current format for Magic the Gathering. You always have to have like a hero card up front. And so this variant of Varian Rin with this art and this like sort of dragon armor that he was wearing, this throne toy that they have, where you literally sit on the throne. It looks so cool. It's derived from this armor, and then the armor is created unique, completely brand new 3D model, but it's created, yes, like you're saying, from the art of that. I guess it is a card. Um, but yeah, on that one for that Varian Ring thing.
Yeah, and it just looks so cool, first of all.
Oh, it's awesome.
and and not only are you getting the Varian Rin skin, you're getting a throne that you can then sit on, not just like Varian, but it sounds more like you're sort of not just going on the throne as him, but uh, could be useful for Death Knights to pull off a little Arthas uh, uh, sort of. I'm losing train of my
Role
thought.
play?
Role play, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, I'm just a bit puzzled at this point where they're coming out with just so much of this, and it's just keeps coming and coming, and just curious why they're keeping all of this away from the EU and NA. Obviously, I know they still have a special deal with regards to um, that they can do these special things and it be exclusive, but it seems to be, more and more they're getting not just a lot of these things, but a lot of more transformative items and exclusives,
I mean, they
whether it's
also still
skins.
have the loot rules that we don't have anymore on their servers.
And that's another thing. And so it's very much a very curious case at this point. Um, Man, I would love to have some of these and like the Voltron mounts and everything.
Yeah, I wish that we had an explanation for this. I wish that we had some sort of I wish we had something. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up, and I didn't want to upset people or just like, rage bait people into like reacting or something, right? What I'm trying to do here is trying to get this conversation into a constructive um type of conversation for the community. So instead of just being angry, which definitely totally valid. If you want to be angry, I support that all the way. Definitely be angry, shout from the rooftops as much as you can. But we want to be constructive about this, right? BlizzCon's coming up. Let's start talking about this. Let's start talking about this online, like heavily, right? If you are going to BlizzCon, don't just maybe try to get in line and be the one to ask them a question at a panel or something, because you might not get there, right? And there's not that many options or openings for how many people get to ask those questions. Start conversations with strangers. Just bring it up. Getting you're waiting in line for something, just talk to people around you. Hey, what do you feel? How do you feel about the Chinese exclusives, right? Like, what do you think we should do about that? And just start those conversations with strangers or whatever. Just get people thinking about this, because I think we definitely need something done about it. And now, while I want to be very clear, like I understand that there are American exclusives. Now, these are different, right? So if there's anybody out there that's listening to us in the EU, they might be shouting right now, like, no, these Americans, they don't understand. Like, they get stuff all the time. Now, here's the problem with that. Those are promotions and they go through corporations here in America, and we don't have the restrictions that EU laws impose on their corporations. We probably should. A whole bunch of things they do over there probably should, but we don't. And because of that, we're allowed to do certain promotional things here within the United States. So if you have a NA license or right, like for your retail video game for World of Warcraft, you're going to be eligible to participate in these promotional events. That, of course, excludes the entirety of maybe China. I don't know how they deal with that, but definitely NA or EU. And so to fight against that, right, to figure that problem out and to solve it, Blizzard has taken the Hate Forged Blaze Cycle, which you could only get from a Mountain Dew promotion, and they've put that for purchase on the trading post for this month in August. So if you really wanted that mount and you never got it, you can go on the trading post and go and get that. That used to be an American NA exclusive. You got to buy some Mountain Dew, get the codes, all that, right? um, it's not that anymore, right? So you can just go to the trading post and get that. They have announced this, and we've reported on this in previous episodes, that they've been wanting to move towards taking things that were exclusive, accidentally perhaps, and giving them to players in a way. And we've seen them do that with the trading post. In fact, the last anniversary for the trading post anniversary that we had a hippogriff that was from the trading card game, and that was exclusive basically because they don't print them anymore, and you can find them on eBay, but for a couple $100. And so now that was just available on the annual, trading post event for when they have like 3-4 vendors all in a row. And so we're seeing them right these wrongs where EU is unable to get these things. Basically, that's kind of like the thing that it seems that they were talking about. And then tangentially also talking about like the card game and such and other promotional things like that had happened. Maybe there was one recently, I think it was Little Diablo or something, or somebody, one of those little pets, and it was from purchasing a very expensive mouse that most players probably didn't purchase. And now you can get that, well, before you had the opportunity to get that pet at the trading post. So the trading post seems to be their solution to these exclusives and people missing them in some way or another, and giving them the opportunity to get them again while still keeping that sort of like limited exclusivity to it, because you still have to be logged in to get it that month, right? And you could just miss WoW for 3 months and you would have missed that opportunity. So they're trying to fix that. What we don't see is them trying to fix the dissonance between what we're getting and what China's getting. And I don't hear any plans about that. So I would like someone to bring that up at BlizzCon and like talk to them about it.
Yeah, especially because Blizzard did confirm that as far as if they do add something, that it does go through them. It's not just a one-sided sort of deal. So we know that Blizzard obviously sees this. The question is, like you said, what are they either going to do about it or not do about it? And I think you raise a good point about needing to have these conversations because this is a lot of content that is missed. And, you know, I never really thought about it with regards to like the Mountain Dew promotions. Um, but, you're correct. We do get a lot, and seeing this stuff put on the
I recently
for
looked at the
Trader Center.
Wowhead comments on the Hate Forge Blaze cycle because I was ripping the picture for a podcast post on X, and I was like, oh, look at the comments, and dude, filled with hate.
Yeah. Again, for us, seeing what China's getting is, like you said, sort of similar to what the EU has been viewing us and what we've getting. And again, that's completely valid and fair, and I completely agree. And now the question then becomes, now that we have the traders tender, um, are we simply going to just, you know, have something come out as a promotion, whatever region you are, and then months later, uh, getting it? Are we going to see that continuing, or are we going to finally see some more balance between these things? Because let's assume, say, another Hate Forge Blaze cycle would come out, and this time, it would come out for the EU. You know, are they going to now in the future just have it say, if it's coming out for the EU only, put it up for traders tender on the North America realms the same day and date, or just have it again going for months later at a time. Um, Personally, I think that if it does have that sort of promotion, maybe have it wait till like the next month. For example, again, we bring up the Hate Forge Blaze cycle. If it comes out in December, maybe for the EU, it will come out on for traders tender the next month in January. I think for something like that, it would make sense. That way, whatever region it comes out for, um, you get to feel like, oh man, you get this thing for free, or you already buy Mountain Dew, you get a little extra bonus. And then the other regions a month later would be like, first of all, Blizzard would actually communicate that they would get it the next month. That's probably the number one thing, that they need to do. But then just have, for traders tender the next month for the EU. I think doing something like that would solve a lot of the problems and would balance things out. That way they can still have the promotions, which not only help them, it helps World of Warcraft and the community. Um, and it helps Blizzard make a little more money. And then by that same token, the EU or China would then get the same mount or whatever it is, the promotion, but they might have to buy some or use their traders tender, which at this point, I think a lot of us pick and choose what we really want. We're not going out every month and getting everything from the traders tender. That sort of balance, I think, is what would be great and what I would like to see. But whether or not we see that, it's just kind of depressing. And I do hope we move more in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need something. We need some sort of solution to whatever it is that that we're doing right now. And like I said, they're solving the gap between NA and EU. I would just really like it if we had, even if it wasn't going to happen for a while, that we knew that at some point eventually we would get these models, and then I wouldn't feel so salty about it.
Yeah, just making it less of a mystery would really, really help us out a lot.
And okay, so on to our next news item. We have the Curse of Ulutech. There was a joint interview with Wowhead, Raider.io, and Icy Veins designers Andrew D'Souza and Taylor Sanders said the split tier structure returns because season one's Dream Rift proved pugs and shorter play sessions could still get real raid progress in a bite-sized instance. And so like all these, there was like a this sort of like Zoom call where all these sites were kind of they had a representative and they had jumped in with these two developers and they were kind of going over a bunch of things from the Curse of Tech. One of the things was asking about ads. There, I guess initially there was just like a ton of ads in Ulutech, and that made it the rounds in the community, and people were worried about that. I think they have tuned that down, but they had a sort of idea where they were trying to get an idea about the sort of philosophy that the designers have when they're putting things together, um, in the way that they handle trash or certain types of things like is this a better raid for cleave or is this a better raid for single target? And they made it clear that they're not really trying to change the way that the entire player base is going to solve this problem this season or this expansion or this patch or whatever. They are taking it from a design perspective from the story side. So, what is it? Is it, ice monsters, void monsters, poison monsters, like snakes, ethereals? what are you fighting, right? Who are the enemies? What are their spells? What do they do? And then based on those variables is how they derive like how you're going to approach the fights and what kind of fights you're going to get yourself into in terms of trash or boss fights and such, like when designing these places. So, I know the community has had conversations about what they think, like, oh, well, they're going to switch us all over to this, or they're going to switch us all over to this other type of play style, or single target's going to be meta, or cleave is going to be meta, and those things are really going to depend on which direction the art team and the design team take their vision.
Yeah, I think this, you know, this echoes a lot of what we've seen in the past in terms of, um, you know, preferring encounter design and then sort of building around that. We've sort of ebbed and flow between single target versus multi-target raid fights, and I think number one, it makes a lot of sense, especially because um, we have a lot of different entities within World of Warcraft, and you know, seeing what they come up with is one of the great things, especially whenever it's like, for example, the aura and having a hidden last a hidden last phase. So, but the the one thing that I always, at the very least, they need to, and I think they do, is with each patch comes, new class changes. And I think what's interesting about right now is that it's not just a single class, but all classes and all specs. They're moving us from having more burst windows to more constant DPS, um, which I have to think it's not just, to keep things more entertaining and fun, but my guess is it's also reflecting the raid and counter design like they're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. The way that they were portraying it is it's design first.
Right. And so I know that for example, uh, Brett Pallies have gotten a rework, and they are, for example, stocking up on two Blades of Wrath instead of just one, and they've been moving a lot of that power to, like Divine Storm and such. So yeah, it's interesting for a peek behind the curtain, and um, and it's nice whenever we do have a lot of differences between these bosses that nothing really looks or acts the same. I mean, even going from, say, Chimeras to Sporefall, um, both are single boss raids, and just the sheer difference between them makes it entertaining. And so, people might complain or have issues between, the different bosses having those different comps or requiring more AoE or single target. But I think that's, what makes the game fun, is, not having the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, they've talked about that in previous interviews where, I mean, Ian specifically said there was this last interview that he had where even if they were to come up with the most perfect system for dungeons or leveling or whatever, or rating or a type of, paradigm for it, it's it's not going to it's not going to matter. In 2 seasons, people are going to be tired of it. So changing something just for change's sake, like that is actually something that they do, but they have to do it intelligently. And that's sort of that philosophy is something that they've learned more recently. So they haven't always just done that, which I think leads them to being a little more flexible about things that they've already put in the game. And even though, right, that also comes with with the idea that starting in Midnight or starting in the War Within, we started getting this sort of language about evergreen features, and they still haven't abandoned that idea. And so there's these evergreen features that I guess sort of give players a consistency throughout all these patches and kind of the way the game just generally operates. But in the nuanced way that these things operate, that is where they're kind of tuning things up and down and changing things from season to season.
Right. And these evergreen features are finally, I think, actually being evergreen because, they've talked a lot about that in the past and we haven't really seen it. Whereas I think finally we kind of are, especially with housing and stuff like that. Um, and it'll be interesting to see if the Omnium Folio will and that sort of dynamic is going to continue throughout the rest of, say, the next expansion. My guess is they're going to have something sort of like it, or what I theorize is us getting our legendaries back. But in either case, they seem to actually have a set idea. We're seeing delves come back. They're going to be coming back in the next expansion. We're going to have more of them this expansion as well. Um, and so, yeah, it's just, finally sort of hit on the ideas that they want. Although we are losing the Decor duels, but if I'm being honest, I don't know if many people actually did them, including myself.
I did not. Well, I did it initially, and I just wanted to check it out and see how fun it was, or if it was going to be fun. Um, I had just a higher expectation, I think, because a lot of people were really hyped about it, for various reasons. And what had ended up happening is it didn't really function like a normal decor duel. Or not decor duel. What is the game type that it's mimicking?
Uh, I don't know. What would you call it? Just a hide and seek?
Yeah, it's something like that. There's something I forget what it's like because it's a popular game type from other games and stuff that people have played before. But it's it was implemented differently, and the expectations that players had for like the reasons why like fun moments can occur from this type of game, it was stripped away, and probably for the idea that like Blizzard usually when they do some sort of game type, sometimes they will put their own spin on it, and they give like the people who are developing it like some freedom to do that. I think the developer that they allowed to head up this project, which they had an interview and they were actually talking about it right before it released, and so there was some footage about that. We can probably go back and look at what they had said, but they were like, "Oh, we've had a lot of fun, a whole lot of internal testing, we're just making sure it's all good." And I just don't think that they had anybody that was like, "Oh no, this is this kind of game type, which is the reason you're putting it in the game." And as a person who personally enjoys that game type, you've done a disservice. And nobody said that. And but like right, like there's the target audience was the people who do that. And even if you've never played that before, this would be your opportunity to play that, but you're not getting the same experience for why those people who've already played this game type report in success, right? Why they are excited about it. You're just not emulating that experience, and it's from changing a few core things about the game that probably seemed minimal and more of like flavor, but ended up being absolutely critical to the way that you find enjoyment in those other games, right? It's because it's not about the game type itself. It's the moments that it creates and the overlaps with it, right? You can find these little party games all over Steam and Twitch, people streaming them of having fun. There's one where you're like climbing with your friends. It's very low poly, not a
Hmm.
visually impressive game, but the interactions with the environments and with your friends. I think one has like proximity voice. So somebody missed a cliff and they fell down and they screamed the whole time and their voice like went, the parallax effect.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just thought that was hilarious. That's hilarious. That's why people laugh. That's why people watch. Is because those things. So if you change core pieces of the features of the game, like you may end up messing that up, and they did. And this feels like a walk back. Honestly, this doesn't feel like, oh, we were always going to do this. This feels like them taking it out. But genuinely, I hope they bring it back for the WoW anniversary or something like that. Like I genuinely think it belongs there.
Yeah, I think for something like that, it would make more sense, where it's not a an ex- a large feature. It's something fun, something you can do real quick, and something that, I mean, for an anniversary, it would make sense. Put it in, say, the Caverns of Time or something, and maybe expand upon it that way, with new arenas essentially. But yeah, I agree. It does definitely seem like a walk back.
So there were quite a few other things that they had covered in that, but definitely if you get a chance, go and find that. It didn't actually take too long to get through that interview. Let me see, I believe it was only half an hour. Oh, and one thing that we did miss for the Chinese region, the I forget what the name of the company is that runs it over there. They had this growing pot of money that was going to be given to a race to world first place prize winner, and if somebody could get race to world first, they would basically get like a ridiculous amount of money. Nobody's claimed it yet, even though China's a very good contender, and recently found out they get a 2 day um after like there's a 2 day delay that they have when their expansions go live or their patches go live and such. So it's not the same. So they have a really big disadvantage, which is crazy. I think the only yeah, no, like yeah, it would have been it just I don't understand why they do that. It's sort of I think it's very unfair. But then nobody has claimed the prize yet. So they've shifted it over and now they're doing like just things throughout the community. So you can write up like a really good raid guide for the upcoming patch. You can write articles, you can do I think maybe like art, maybe there's an art contest. They're turning the money inward into the community into like a bunch of different things and they're taking it out. They're taking the race to world first prize like completely away. So they've like so coming season 2 of Midnight, like that whole campaign is like officially done.
Yeah, and I just feel bad about that. But at the same time, it makes sense and it's good that's going into the community. But it's really a lot of money on the line.
And on to our next news item, the Mythic Plus and the end of computational add-ons. Starting in 12.1, add-ons lose direct access to aura information, and a hotfix already broke the fully automated Delve boss add-ons ahead of the patch. So um, the Delve boss for the question mark and double question mark is some like I don't know some snake guy, and I haven't really looked it up very much or seen the fight, but there's this sort of poison spray that will cover like a quarter of the room or an eighth of the room or something, and or phrase everything in only a quarter of the room or a sliver of the room is safe. And so you have to remember where the safe zones are and then like move around. It's basically the Bellerin fight, but not without the memory game, right? Bellerin doesn't have a memory game. So this one gives you a memory game. It shows you where it's going to go. Then you memorize it. And then of course, navigate the mechanics while jumping through that little memory game. And players, of course, like found that really difficult. And there was even somebody who had created an add-on to contend with this. They would figure out that there were these sort of signals, these unique signals for each of the projections of where it was going to be. And so then they would record that and then they would, using a timer, then it would display exactly where you needed to be on this sort of mock-up mini map, and the mini map rotated as you rotated your camera. So like no matter where you rotated your camera, it was locked in to show you exactly which quadrant you should be in, basically playing the game for you, right? Which I know accessibility and certain things, right? But there recently people have had conversations about the direction that World of Warcraft is going, and while it's not completely like everything is accessible to everyone, There are still things in the game that like mythic difficulty, right? Like getting a trophy or something because you got a mythic achievement, right? I don't think that those trophies come from a heroic achievement, right? For the bust, the statues.
Some of them do. I think there's like for example, like a silver and a gold trophy, um, depending on heroic or mythic. I think there's something like that.
Okay, so you can get the statue, but you'll get like a visually different one for this, right? Sometimes there's a mount, sometimes it's armor. There's a lot of different things that will project exclusivity, and they haven't completely taken those things out yet. So, you know, there are still things in this game that are difficult and should remain difficult, and you should not be able to just kind of like use an add-on to just walk right through it. And I I don't know. I don't buy. This is also one of the conversations where people had a conversation about accessibility, and that individuals with certain forms of like ADHD and autism and perhaps other disorders, but specifically those who were called out in this comment, people that struggle with these things will have a difficult time navigating the mechanics and doing a memory game because memory is like, I don't know, some issue that they have. And while I sort of get that argument, that would just mean for those players that this is out of your reach, and that perhaps if it's not within you, when it's not out of your reach, and it is something that you can attain, and you believe that, then by all means, don't let anything stop you. Work hard for it, but probably start at like the beginning of the season and just work every day on it, and you'll get it eventually. But if you do believe that it is far outside of the limits of what you are currently capable of, and accessibility would be an issue, that would just invalidate this part of the game from being like one of your options, right? Like you probably, if this is an issue and you can't do this mechanic and this boss, and it's due to an accessibility issue, from a disability or something, then you're probably also not playing, mythic rating, and that's okay. Like there's a ton of other things in the game that you can do, and there's usually different difficulties of all of them. So I don't really see the issue with this, and I don't think it's a campaign against people with ADHD or autism or something like that. Like, obviously those commenters are crazy and they're going to be, over the top with the things that they say, but even on the lighter side of that, of like Blizzard just being, blind to the needs of certain people with certain disabilities, I don't know that that's a good argument. This is just a different part of the game, and if you can't do it without an add-on, like, I'm sorry, but if it's really, really hard and it feels impossible and you keep doing it and then you eventually get it, it's going to feel amazing.
Yeah, the thing is, there's a difference between playing a game and having the game play itself, and or um, having it so that the add-on does all the work for you. Um, One of the bigger issues, though, is whenever they've allowed the computational add-ons, weak orders, etc., um, it actually made it harder, um, not just for us, because you'd have to download a weak aura pack. Everybody would have to synchronize and have the same one. Have to check you had the same version. You had DVM, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but we have to remember that it actually made it harder for the devs to develop it, because they were in a constant arms race. Um, Nowadays, the idea is for them not only not to have this constant arms race, but to design and develop bosses that um, anybody can do. Um, Sometimes, it can be difficult in terms of, if you do have a disability, that's understandable. Um, but you know, it's there's a difference between um, it being hard and them, sort of cutting someone off. They have made strides, especially with one button rotation, as well as extra um, colorblind options, as well as the fact that they've integrated a lot more with the text-to-speech, including for your auras and cooldowns and stuff like that. So, you know, people, and the unfortunate thing, again, is that the people on the internet who are making the most of these, or are complaining the most, I really don't think are playing the game, or uh, worse, are, saying these things, but, they're not really interested in the people actually who may be disabled, and having a hard time. They're not really interested in making things easier. They're just sort of complaining and stuff like that, which kind of helps no one. And like you said, it's, you know, not only is there a difference, but it can sort of be hard to um, separate the two and to say cater to one or the other. But I don't know. I think Blizzard is doing a good job with, as far as that's concerned. But you know, sometimes it's a little more nuanced than that. But at the same time, like you said, this is just how the game is and how it's played.
Yeah, and yeah, you can't have access to everything. You can't just hand everything to us in a way like that. And the add-ons, while some accessibility things have, and they even had that conversation last time where they understand openly that making these changes in the way that they're doing them did remove some accessibility add-ons, but they are working diligently to get those features sort of back in some way or another. So, like, I think there was something that announced things and that the new iteration of that in Midnight wasn't working really well, and there was a lot of complaints about that, but that was like at the beginning of this expansion, right? And they've sort of just been working with their secret values and different ways to do these things and making everything better. Again, this is the first season for this, so we're going through some growing pains. And to that point, we in 12.1 are getting the ability to track items and like trinkets and such, like on our cooldown bars. So we're going to see that option show up. The way that these are sort of displayed to the UI and the sort of secret values, the way they're being able to be passed around, that's changing in 12.1. So if you're an add-on developer, you want to pay attention to that. If you have add-ons that are changing your UI in some way, be aware. You're going to want to download those and make sure that your add-ons are being updated by their publisher, the developer, before the patch goes live, because you may be running into some issues or a lot of Lua errors because the way that these things are being handled is changing. They're changing for various other reasons because they're closing some gaps that people are like, oh, well, there's this gap here and this add-on's doing this. Like, why aren't you changing that? 12.1 is the time that those changes are coming in. Certain things are going to break that should not have been happening. Certain things are going to break that should have been happening, but it's just up to the developers to catch up to the new way that they are displaying or transmitting that information. So there's still going to be secret values, but the limitations in the design that they had before sort of limited them from doing those things, and now they've changed that design and they're now able to be more flexible with what they allow the player to see or while the developer to move around your screen, such as these different things. So like the cooldown manager sort of worked on some of that same logic, and so the restrictions that were being applied to the cooldown manager were the same restrictions that we can see being applied to developers in general and the things that they're allowed to move around their screen, which is also where some of the controversies for Ellesmere's UI being able to do certain things and read certain states of other players that was like maybe announced that it shouldn't be doing. Like those are the kinds of things that are being fixed and addressed, right? So when 12.1 comes out, expect there to be some issues. Definitely update your add-ons, and maybe don't expect to do some like crazy stuff like right away. Like take that first week to let all those bugs work out and the add-ons update. Yeah. So with the addition of the way that they're like moving things around, it's going to make I think it's going to make the cooldown bars just like so much better. But so like I have a UI that I'm making. It's just for me. I haven't put it out on CurseForge or anything yet, but I just edit things as I need them. I have a very specific way that I want my UI, and I don't need an entire overhaul. So it's like when I need something done, I just like change it. And so far, I've approached each alt that I play in so far in Midnight, and then I kind of like build out a little cooldown bar that I keep anchored to my mouse. And I just like my mouse is always where I'm looking, so it's just easier to keep things there. But I can't keep everything there. And so I do use some of the default like cooldown managers and the views on that, but I keep them very, very minimal. But what I like about my add-on is when I use a spell, it just goes away. Like it leaves the screen. And that function, like that visual um, function isn't in the default like frames. And so that's why I have it set up in that way. And so I actually started making an add-on that allows me to, I've got like a 10 by 10 grid and I can just basically build any shape that I want and put any of the any of my spells and such like on anywhere on the grid, and then I can place anywhere on the grid an anchor point for where it anchors to the mouse, and then I have logic that makes it so that the rows and the columns and such collapse towards the anchor point. And so basically you can make whatever shape you want in a grid, and it'll follow your mouse pointer around however you want it to, like anchored to whatever part, and then it just as you use up your spells, like they disappear and the shape just gets smaller. And I like that because I put my spells that like need to be used on cooldown, so that way like when I use them they're just like they're off my screen, and then when they're on my screen they're sort of in the way and I notice them, and so I get rid of them. So like I was working on that, but I realized that like I'm gonna have to rewrite some of this stuff when 12.1 comes out, because the way that they're handling managing most of the stuff that this add-on, this part of my add-on is working on is it's gonna be broken. So like that's gonna be something I have to deal with next week, because I'm not on the PTR and I just haven't taken the time to do that.
Right, especially for something that so far you only plan to use for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just wait until I need it, and then I'll just fix it on the fly. And or just like I don't know, just work on it and then turn it back on when I when I fix it, because I
Hmm.
don't necessarily need it. I can just use the default stuff, which that's another thing I like. I like using a lot of the default Blizzard frames for things because, come patch day, like my UI isn't broken. I've got a couple things, but I can turn them off and it doesn't really do very much to me in terms of my ability to play. Like I can raid first day because I use default stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, I know, like for me, um, in theory, I say in theory because there's been plenty of patch days where you kind of get caught with your pants down because DBM or something hasn't been updated. But the good news is that, like you, in general, I just sort of have a few different things, like for example, bartender, unhalted unit frames, which still sad the developer isn't
Yeah.
developing anymore, um, and a few other things that, while nice, I can still get by without them, um, and not have to use, like for example, Ellesmere. If that, you know, isn't ready for the patch, then like LVY in the past, everybody doesn't know what to do and just sort of stands there, not being able to raid or anything just because they're so used to it and stuff. So, yeah, I know what you mean on um, being able to raid with the default.
Yeah. Another thing that I remember that we had done when weak ores was still a thing is the amount of friction that weak ores had caused made it so that we completely abandoned the main primary strats that everybody was relying on, because they were so reliant on the weak aura and everybody having it and then synchronizing your actions around that. We just never wanted to get pugs to agree to download it and figure it out and do all that, basically turn into, tech support floor for the first half hour of raid, and then we can like go and do this and then do it all over again when we get pugs again. So we just said no to that, and just did the strats that didn't require the weak ores, and we did fine.
Right, right.
Okay, so we did already cover this about the Decor Duel leaving, and 12.1 goes live. We are not going to have Decor Duels anymore. One thing that we want to point out is they do have some exclusive things in there, and we did get news that the transmog and such, or I believe the housing items, the housing decor, was going to be available from a vendor, perhaps with Voidlight Marl or something, but you would be able to purchase these decor items in some other way. So if you've already bought them, that is unfortunate. But if you haven't bought them yet and you want to just go in there, you can use some of your you also want to use up all your currency. You can use some of your currency for transmog items. Transmog items are actually really cool. There's a I haven't seen it anywhere else. So I think it's like a unique for transmog shield. It's the really tall, narrow Silver Moon Guard shield. It looks awesome, and you can get that right now. And there's a one-hander that looks like a polearm glaive, and I believe a two-hander that looks the same way, and then an actual glaive that has the same sort of model. Or well, the art is slightly different and varies for all of them, but basically it gives the two-bladed polearm art for many of the weapon options. So there's like three or four of those, of course, for there's one for staff, one for polearm, one for one-handed, like that. And so you can buy different slot different weapon types for the same general kind of art. And it's a really cool Silver Moon Guard type of glaive. Then they have a one-hander and a two-hander that is just a single blade sword. Also looks super cool. Just looks like one of those pole arms cut in half. And yeah, there's a few other things in there that I think would be really cool. But for me personally, I know that they didn't mention the transmog being available again in some other capacity. So I went and I played, and I know that they did do some changes to the game in this last week or this last couple weeks. They made some changes, like if you stand still, you would get flies that buzz around you, and the longer you stayed still, the more flies would gather around you, and so it'd be really obvious that somebody was hiding somewhere. Whereas just allowing them to be a plate on a table if nobody noticed, right? That's your fault. So there are just certain things that they had changed, and it actually, I don't know if that's the difference, but this time around, it's kind of fun. Like it's not as boring as it was last time. And even if you lose, you still get something, which was a weird thing about when the game first launched. You spend like 10 minutes in this game type, you can do that 3 times in a row, lose 3 times in a row, and for the last half hour, you would have gotten 0 currency for your efforts.
I actually didn't know that, to be honest.
It is very annoying.
That that is a wee bit of an oversight.
But they changed it in this last week. So, or maybe they changed it before. I'm not really sure. I haven't been playing Decor Duels. So yeah. Oh, it's called Prop Hunt. That's the game type that they stole it from. It's a prop hunt game. But yeah, so I've been playing it very much, and I've only been playing it in this last week. I played, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 matches, and you get about 70 to 90, depending on if you win or lose. So it's not bad. It's pretty good either way, win or lose. So go in there, play, and it's only going to take you 2 of those sessions just about to get a weapon piece. To get one of the transmog pieces, because all the transmogs are 150 tokens of whatever that currency is, and you get like half that in a single match. A little bit more if you win. So, go in there, have fun. It's pretty fun. I played a match, and I was a chair next to a table, and I had so many spells going off in the area, like for nearly the whole match. People were running by me, casting their like automatic spells. They're just like spraying everywhere, but barely missing me. So it was actually kind of fun.
Yeah, so get them before you have to spend Trader's Tender.
Definitely. And on to our next news item, we have a new Twitch drop that coincides with the 12.1 launch. If you watch, I believe it's 4 hours of World of Warcraft content on Twitch, you will be eligible to earn this in-game reward. If you do not have your Twitch linked to your Battle.net account, or you have like the wrong one linked or something, whatever that is, it takes 7 days for like a cooldown to actually allow you to like add another account. So, we're getting pretty close. Platform launches, but it goes all the way to September 8th. So make sure that you um, go and you figure out your Twitch and that it's all lined up correctly, and it's connected to the correct Battle.net account. And then watch anybody stream Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Templrivanho always streams. You can hop in there. That's going to be a 2-hour stream, and you'll be able to get half your time knocked out. You cannot watch a second stream simultaneously and earn 4 hours and 2 hours. It is done just like consecutively as you're online. So just when you're done, just go watch another content creator, and then it'll add to that. But 4 hours is not very long, and you can get that done pretty easily. And what it gives you is the Sorcerer's Grassy Garb hat and cape. And if you've been paying attention to the traders post, you'll notice that we've had various colorations of certain armor types that seem to be like on a repeated pattern coming through the traders post. The witch's hat and the cape that comes with it is one. The sort of gladiator skirt and the leg wraps, that's another one. And there's like a top that goes with that too. And now, along with that coloration, we see the Outlaws hat. And that's what we got in our Outlaw set. That's very new, very exclusive one for this one in the trading post in August. Looks like going forward, we will also be getting whatever the coloration theme is for that month. We'll also be getting basically cowboy hats. So we have a witch hat and a cape, a gladiator skirt and some leg wraps, and a cowboy hat as this sort of like repeating pattern of armor that gets sent to us, that gets given to us in our trading post every month. And there seems to always be two colorations. This month we have a coloration called Midnight and a coloration called Cloud. So it's black and white.
Yeah, and we've seen this in the past with the even beyond the skirts. Whenever they first included Trader's Tender, it was a bunch of different cloaks with the, like you said, for example, Midnight or Snowy for the white,
Grassy for green.
And I'm just excited to see more of the cowboy hats.
Yeah, I like that. Like I do like that they have this sort of consistency in the trading post where there's these armor types, and if I like them, I'm probably going to be collecting them. Like the toops, those little fur hats that they have. They continuously come in different colors. So if you really like those hats, you're over here collecting them every month. If you really like the witch hats and the capes, you're collecting those every month. I really like the cowboy hats, just like you. I will be collecting all of those every single month. So it doesn't always have to be a trading post full of things that you like. And actually, I genuinely enjoy having a month or two with things that I do not like, because I earn all the trading tender and then I don't spend it. And then when a really like a banger month comes out for me, then I get to buy a ton of stuff.
Exactly. And for me, I'm the same way. Just if it's good, it's good. But I'm fine waiting and stocking up.
Yeah, there's no way to buy a trading tender unless there's an expansion and you can buy the expansion and they give you a little bit there. But outside of expansion releases, they don't really allow you to get more trading tenders. So it is a very exclusive currency, and yeah, definitely works out in our favor when we don't like something in the trading post. So, and one of the things that people were complaining about was that the little plushie that we were getting, the decor item, that it was kind of getting old. Like we just kept getting these plushy Murgles, and there's just a different coloration for several months, and it wasn't really anything new. And it's like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm only doing it out of habit. Like, and I really want it, and it's easy enough to get it because some of the Twitch streamers that I know, that your stream will be ineligible, I believe, to do that. Or to stream on another platform if you're participating in that. Because when I hear other streamers talk about it, they talk about not being able to stream simultaneously on YouTube because Twitch is doing the promotion. And they didn't say out loud, but it seems to be implied that if you are going to participate in that promotion, you cannot be streaming anywhere else. It's like a Twitch exclusive type of thing.
Yeah, which would make sense, especially because the way that it works, you have to connect your BattleNet account to Twitch, and then from there you watch a Twitch stream with WoW, and unless it's set up in the same way as YouTube, doesn't really work that way.
Oh, no, no. I mean, as a streamer, as someone who's on
Oh,
the
are they
streamer side,
actively?
you are disallowed from broadcasting your stream on any other platform, but YouTube's just the easiest one, so that's always what people talk about. But I imagine it's not just a YouTube. You can't do that. It's like anything you can't do that. So you can only. It's like an exclusive broadcasting rights. If you want to participate in this promotion and be eligible for the promotion, you can't broadcast anywhere else because Twitch is offering you this. And while it might be, facilitated by Blizzard, Twitch probably paid for it.
Right, right. I see what you mean.
Yeah. So, it's not really anything new. I mean, it's new coloration, but it's not really like a new model or anything like that. So if people were expecting something different, they got it. They're expecting something very different, you're going to be disappointed. But, I'm gonna watch. So, it's easy enough to get, and I think I like the green coloration. Okay, and with the we're gonna end this on the last news item that we have here. Uh, we're coming out of the WoW news here. We're going into some Microsoft news. This one is I wanted to report on this because the Q4 report for their quarterly earnings has released within the last couple of weeks since the last time we'd like really talked about them, and it doesn't look good, but sort of that's kind of what we expected. Right? We had a lot of layoffs and all these things, and so the numbers that we're seeing, it's very likely that the layoffs that we had seen happened is in the time frame that they did because they wanted to get ahead of this report because this report doesn't look good, but to an investor, right? You see this report, but then it comes with the message of yes, but also we just fired a whole bunch of people. So like this is like yesterday's news. Just wait till next quarter and it's going to look a lot better than this.
Yeah. It's still depressing because not only were everybody, either fired or let go, whatever they want to call it these days, um, but we're also losing another competitor in the gaming sphere, and the realistic outlook is, or the realistic thinking is just to recognize that um, the more competition we have, the better things are. Um, we are especially seeing this with, for example, um, Sony and their removal of uh, physical media in the immediate future. Um, they are not only doing this on the gaming side, but they're also doing this on the actual manufacturing side. In other words, Sony still produces a bulk of all of the Blu-rays, whether it's for the PS5, PS4, or just movies and TV. Um, and they themselves have already said that even though they are um, removing the physical media, sort of over time, they've actually already converted a portion of their factories from producing Blu-rays into other things. So, with this in mind, um, there's not really a way for example, Xbox to come in and say, "Hey guys, we know it sucks that what Sony's doing, but we're gonna say, continue producing physical media for an extra year beyond what Sony and PlayStation are doing." Um, and so we're seeing that. as Xbox goes down, competition goes down, and therefore, it's going to limit more choices. And, um, you know, Xbox may not be as popular in the rest of the world. By that, sort of the Eastern. I know, for example, in Japan, it's still wildly unpopular. Whereas here in the West, especially in North America and the United States, um, a lot of people still love Xbox, not just that they have the system, but the company and, the games they've created and stuff as well. And so, you know, this decline is more than just a company or a service. It's losing competition, losing people in the industry, um, losing, another thing that people have. And I do see the uh, Q3 um, for 2026 was negative 33%, whereas Q4 was negative 13% for hardware. So it's
Yeah,
technically
they cut it in
a bit,
half.
yeah. And hopefully that goes up, but you know, we're we're still in sort of the first stages of what this is going to look like, and it just sucks. And um, um, the good news at the very least is still Blizzard is, um, as far as they're concerned, Microsoft is still, knocking it out of the park. But it just sucks seeing it.
Yeah, for sure, definitely, and I agree. But we can see here, like you were saying, in Q3 of 2026, or 26, we have like negative 33% on their hardware, and then this quarterly report is negative 13%. Being able to cut those losses in half from last quarter to this quarter, mind you, from the two previous quarters, it was an increasing loss. Like they were losing more each successive quarter. And in this quarter alone, with Sharma coming in and making all the changes and everything she's done, they've cut that in half in time for these reports, right? And so, some of the severance packages that were paid out had been bundled up into this and such, and so the losses, they're kind of eating them this quarter. But if again, I've been saying ever since Asha Sharma got in here, if I was an investor, I'd be very excited about this. This makes me as an investor, it would make me feel really good. As a developer or as a gamer, as I don't know, many other people, it may be a much more nuanced opinion that you would have, but objectively, she is doing good things for the overall health of the company and of the division, and the bad practices that were in place much longer before she came around. And again, this is that sort of that the hiring drive that most companies, not just Microsoft, will do when a couple of years later, if the cadence slows down and the demand slows down and they got to start making cuts, and then they have to, that's the cycle that we've seen play out, and that has something to do with why some of these people were losing their jobs, because honestly, things were already in a bad situation like before AI came around. And then AI comes around, they want to replace them all like that, and then it's an even worse situation. And then the demand goes down, and it's an even worse situation. So there's a lot of things that are contributing to this stuff, and it wasn't just like something that happened overnight or just a decision that we decided to make because Asha Sharma's in charge. Like this has been a declining, like you can see in these reports, it's been declining for a while now. It's being talked about very heavily. But one of the things that we see that Asha has shared with us. She had posted on X that Xbox brought in 200 million new players across 26, but revenue didn't grow with that audience, and pledged to close that gap by investing in what players actually value, targeting a return to growth by the end of 27. So for the fiscal year 27, what she's promising is that the entire division is going to look better as a whole, but we've just gutted every single studio, nearly every single studio, got rid of some completely, dissolved others completely, like just crazy cuts going on, except for Blizzard, right? And so Blizzard is now left in this sort of this barren landscape, and the person who's in charge of this, and also Satya Nadella was saying something to this extent as well, that hey, we just did a bunch of things, but don't worry, next year it's going to be great to investors. And now, regardless of what the market does and how things happen, they have made a promise, open promise to their investors that they're going to be better and be profitable and do better. And right, and that's sort of, Blizzard is in a place where they're not really changing anything. They don't need to. Right. So without Blizzard changing anything and operating in the way that they're operating now, maybe with a little bit more pressure, like I don't know if the cuts that they made and the things they did and the changes they made will translate to a better fiscal year in 27, or if some other factors are going to make the end year report look bad, and then in turn, because it's hard to explain that to investors, I guess, they're going to put a lot of pressure on our game and the company that runs us, right? Runs our game and determines how we have fun. And so definitely something to keep in mind, right? And so we like to report on these things because they will, in some way affect Blizzard and World of Warcraft one way or another. And so I think this is definitely something to keep on your radar. Because we have right here an exclusive, or an explicit promise to be better after gutting everyone except for Blizzard. So it's basically up to Blizzard now, one of the only studios left untouched to champion this cause. And one stat that I wanted to add into this here is that the US subscription video game spending, a category that specifically includes MMOs, was actually up 16% year over year in the first half of 2026, even as Xbox own numbers slid. And we have, like I said, the ESA.com, and we have a 2025 US consumer spending on video game nears or pandemic level peak at $60.7 billion, second highest on record. So well, we do have Asha Sharma reporting in that these things were doing not great, and Xbox numbers increased, but the revenue didn't, and they're trying to fill these gaps and figure these things out. In the overall ecosystem for games, the numbers are going up, and so the market value is increasing, and new people are being added into this ecosystem every single year, and more places around the world are coming online in a way that they're able to take advantage of these. And it does also seem like a lot of mobile games are taking this number up. To quote this report, continued growth in consumer spending reflects how deeply video games are woven into the fabric of American culture, said ESA president and CEO Stanley Pierre Lewis. As the industry embraces new platforms and service models, we're seeing shifts in how people play, connect, and engage with video games. This evolution is why video games continue to not only the country's most popular form of entertainment, but a sustained growth engine for the US economy.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised with the MMO numbers, but I know that whenever the Elder Scrolls online developers, whatever part of Bethesda that was, um, unfortunately, before they were laid off, they actually said that they were meeting all of Microsoft's goals for what they had. So I guess I'm surprised as a whole it's going up, but not surprised. There are still some good standouts aside from World of Warcraft um, that are still making money, and yeah, good to hear that even the overall amount of money they're getting is actually going to pandemic levels. That's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. And Microsoft's in a really good position because in this report there's a chart, top games in the United States in 2025, and for for the console and PC full game top grossing, most of that list is owned by EA. So we got EA, Activision, Blizzard, right? Like, so this Blizzard King, and now, right, like they're in a good position. So while we speculate that maybe in this new era, after all these cuts, that Blizzard might experience some pressure. The pressure might actually just be on EA, Activision, right? Which they're all like one combined company in a way, but they definitely have some level of division between them. There's a partition between all these within that conglomerate, and so Blizzard seems to like function on its own within that conglomerate.
Right.
Yeah, so these ones being the heavy hitters, I think these might actually be candidates for whatever initially, as opposed to us. But yeah, there seems to be there's that list, and then there's an entire list just for mobile top grossing, which tells you that mobile in and of itself is a huge market and a growing market, and one of the main reasons why these numbers are going up. So I know people were really. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one of the biggest games, just even right now, is Monopoly on mobile, and the unfortunate thing is it's a sort of a pay-to-win type of game, but the amount that it generates is just astounding.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, so that's where we're gonna end it, and a little bit of that Microsoft news to wrap up the pod with you guys. Before we go, if you want to support the show, the best way is through our Patreon. Every bit helps us keep the lights on, improve the production, and keep this going every week. You can find us at patreon.com/lastattemptpod. And in our free sport actions, if you can't spare the gold, that's totally fine. You can still help in a big way at no cost. You can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Drop a rating and a review. And the best thing you can do to help the podcast is to help us find new listeners, and hopefully new players. Get them in the game. Definitely appreciate all of you sharing any of that. And in this last week, I have started scheduling posts for our social media sites, and so it's no longer just Instagram where I like upload something, or X where I upload like a notification that the podcast went live. You'll be seeing things across the week if you follow us on any of our socials, and those are Twitter or X, the Everything app, at Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, and all of those are at Last Attempt Pod. You can find us at that handle on all those platforms. The Discord link will always be in the description, and yeah, I've I actually just I got this little automated pipeline that I've got, where because I get singular audio tracks from Craig, and then I combine them after I edit them. I just run a transcript on them for a local AI model that I have, and I sort of get a transcript for each of these stages, and then I am able to find candidates for clips that I would like to put on, like, whatever platforms, and then I just run it through a pipeline, and it just goes and extracts all of them out for me. And then I have a bunch of like B-roll footage that I've gotten from just recording myself using OBS, like for the whole screen, and I have it crop out like a portrait of like right out the center and combine it with the audio automatically, and then also throw subtitles on that were derived from the subtitle tracks that I've generated. So I've got this whole thing, and it's completely automated, and now it gives me several clips that I can use throughout the week. And so now I have these clips from our podcast with some footage and stuff from like gameplay and other things going around. I had to change a couple of them because it's like, oh no, we're talking about Ulduar right now. Let me go get like the Tidecaller, the boss and stuff, and just do a little video of that real quick that I was screen recorded, and I put that as the background instead. But most of the other ones are just like some B-roll gameplay footage and stuff, and I put those on all the platforms. And so if you're following us on any of those platforms, there's like, from now on, there's going to be something to interact with and to comment on and to follow and such on all of those, not just like a blank social media page. So that's like a new thing that we've got going. yeah, keep an eye out for that and try and follow us on all of our socials. We genuinely appreciate it. And if you can share any of our posts there or like retweet them or repost them or any of those things, definitely appreciate that as well. Yeah, yeah, that's great. And we appreciate all of you guys still listening and coming in and tuning in every week with us. And also you, Templrivanho, this is great. Again, have you back here always every week, very consistent. I genuinely appreciate that. You want to tell these people where they can find you?
Sure. The easiest way to find me in my Twitch page is just go to thehumandistraction.com, and that should redirect you straight to my Twitch page. And from there, you can follow, subscribe, and watch us as we raid.
Yeah, y'all definitely want to check that out, especially in this. Well, next week probably not going to be doing very much. Probably the 1 week we take off. But the following week after that, the guild will be raiding Curse of Ulduar. Probably taking a jump into the mythic, the Tidebound Grotto, and going into there and trying out that new layer and seeing the mythic flex difficulty on that one. So yeah, definitely come in and check it out. Check us out raiding. It'll be a whole lot of fun. And you can find me at twitch.tv/squirrelthug_ if I ever decide that I'm going to jump back in. I mean, I will, but whenever I decide to jump back in it, you'll see me there. And also we might have some things that we'll run and do on the Last Attempt podcast Twitch channel. And prior to us getting a whole like video thing set up, we might do some things, especially there's a promotion coming up. I don't know about this soon, but we might do something. So go and follow us just in case. So, and you can find us at twitch.tv/last attempt pod. Yeah, we appreciate a follow and you guys checking it out. And when we got something new, we'll let you guys know here. And yep, that's it for us today. Thank you.
See ya.